Stop for a second and listen carefully, because what I'm about to say will challenge something most people have believed their entire lives. The majority of people do not fail after they start. They fail long before the starting line even appears. They fail in silence, in their thinking, in their habits, in the quiet negotiations they make with themselves when nobody is watching. And if you're serious about transforming your life into something powerful, disciplined, and respected, then subscribe to this channel right now, because the ideas you hear here are not designed to comfort you. The ideas you hear are not designed to comfort you. They are designed to sharpen you. Most people imagine failure as a dramatic event, the business collapsing, the plan falling apart, the dream publicly crashing in front of everyone. But the truth is far more uncomfortable than that, because real failure is invisible, and it happens quietly in the mind, months or even years before the world ever sees a result. A man wakes up with an idea. For a brief moment, he feels the spark of ambition. But almost immediately, another voice appears, a quiet voice trained by years of comfort, hesitation, and social conditioning. That voice begins asking small questions that sound harmless. What if it doesn't work? What will people think? What if I'm not ready yet? And just like that, before the first step is taken, the battle is already lost. Understand this clearly. The human mind is a battlefield, and most people surrender territory before the war even begins. They negotiate with their fears. They lower their standards. They search for reassurance instead of preparation. And slowly, without realizing it, they construct a mental prison made of hesitation, doubt, and endless planning with zero execution. This is why so many people spend years talking about the life they want while never actually building it. Because talking feels productive. Planning feels intelligent. But movement, real movement, requires something far rarer: courage combined with discipline. Think of life like a high-level chess match. The amateur looks only at the current move. The professional studies the entire board. He understands patterns, pressure, positioning, and consequences 10 steps ahead. In the same way, successful individuals do not wait until opportunity arrives to prepare themselves. They build the mindset first. They train their focus. They strengthen their discipline. Because when the moment finally appears, there is no time to develop strength. You either already have it or you collapse under the weight of responsibility. Most people collapse, not because they are stupid, not because they lack talent, but because they never built the internal structure required to carry ambition. Ambition is heavy. Responsibility is heavy. Success is heavy. And if your mind is weak, the weight will crush you before you even lift it. Look around at the modern world and you will see a strange pattern. People say they want greatness, yet they organize their entire lives around comfort. They want extraordinary results while maintaining ordinary habits. They want respect while avoiding discipline. They want victory while refusing the daily grind that creates winners. It's like entering a professional boxing ring after years of sitting on the couch and then acting surprised when the first punch knocks you down. The outcome was predictable from the beginning. The preparation determined the result. This is the brutal truth most people never confront. Your life is not shaped by your intentions. It is shaped by your standards. Standards determine your actions. Actions determine your habits. Habits determine your trajectory. And trajectory determines your destiny. If your standards are low, your life will quietly shrink to match them. If your standards are elite, your life begins expanding in directions most people cannot even imagine. But raising your standards requires something uncomfortable. It requires abandoning the identity you've been protecting. Many people secretly cling to weakness because it excuses their inaction. If you believe you're unlucky, then failure becomes understandable. If you believe you lack opportunity, then effort becomes optional. But if you accept that your current results are the direct product of your daily decisions, then suddenly the responsibility becomes unavoidable. And responsibility is terrifying to those who have spent years avoiding it. That is why most people fail before they start, because starting requires ownership. Ownership means looking in the mirror and admitting that your discipline has been inconsistent, your focus scattered, your standards negotiable. That realization alone is too heavy for many individuals, so they escape into distraction, endless scrolling, endless entertainment, endless conversations about what they might do someday. Someday becomes next year. Next year becomes never. Meanwhile, the disciplined minority moves silently in the background, building strength, building knowledge, building resilience. Think about elite military strategy for a moment. The most successful commanders do not wait until the battle begins to train their soldiers. Training happens long before the conflict. Conditioning happens long before the pressure. Strategy is developed long before the enemy appears on the horizon. Why? Because preparation determines survival. Life operates under the same principle. If you are mentally unprepared for pressure, then pressure will expose you instantly. If you are unprepared for responsibility, responsibility will overwhelm you. If you are unprepared for competition, competition will defeat you before you understand what happened. The world is not slowing down to accommodate hesitation. The world rewards those who move with clarity and punishes those who wait for perfect conditions. And here is another uncomfortable truth. Perfect conditions do not exist. They never have. Every successful individual you admire began in imperfect circumstances, with incomplete knowledge, limited resources, and plenty of uncertainty. The difference is that they moved anyway. They understood that clarity is not something you wait for, it's something you create through action. Motion produces information. Information produces improvement. Improvement produces confidence. Confidence produces momentum. But none of that can exist if the first step never happens. This is where discipline enters the conversation. Discipline is not about motivation. Motivation is emotional, unstable, temporary. Discipline is structural. It is the ability to execute decisions regardless of how you feel in the moment. When a disciplined individual sets a target, the mind stops negotiating and starts organizing. Energy is directed, time is protected, focus becomes ruthless, and slowly the impossible begins transforming into the inevitable. Imagine two individuals standing at the edge of the same opportunity. One is filled with hesitation, waiting for certainty, waiting for approval, waiting for the fear to disappear. The other understands a simple principle. Fear is not a stop sign, it is a signal that growth is nearby. So he steps forward while the other remains frozen. Months pass, years pass. Eventually, people look at the results and call one person lucky while the other wonders what went wrong. Nothing mysterious happened. One individual acted while the other negotiated with his doubts until the window closed. The brutal irony is that many people spend their entire lives searching for confidence, when confidence itself is simply the byproduct of repeated action under pressure. You do not think your way into confidence. You behave your way into it. Every difficult task you complete rewires the way you see yourself. Every disciplined decision strengthens your internal identity. Slowly, the narrative in your mind begins to change. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who tries, you become someone who executes. And once that shift happens, hesitation begins losing its power over you. Because you understand something most people never learn. Action is the cure for uncertainty. Action is the cure for doubt. Action is the cure for doubt. Action is the cure for the mental fog that keeps people stuck in endless preparation mode. The world does not reward potential. The world rewards output. And output belongs to those who move before they feel ready. So if you're listening carefully right now, understand the real challenge in front of you. The challenge is not intelligence. The challenge is not opportunity. The challenge is whether you are willing to confront the internal habits that have been quietly sabotaging your momentum for years. Are you willing to eliminate distractions that weaken your focus? Are you willing to build routines that strengthen your discipline? Are you willing to raise your standards so high that your old behaviors no longer fit the person you are becoming? Because transformation does not happen through occasional bursts of motivation. It happens through consistent pressure applied in the same direction day after day after day. And the moment you begin living that way, something fascinating starts to occur inside your mind. The voice of hesitation grows quieter. The voice of certainty grows stronger. Decisions become faster. Focus becomes sharper. Your entire internal architecture begins reorganizing around progress instead of comfort. At that point, you are no longer someone who dreams about starting. You are someone who moves. And once movement begins, the entire trajectory of your life starts shifting in ways that most people around you will not immediately understand. They will see the results later. They will see the progress later. But the real transformation began much earlier. In the moment you stopped negotiating with your fear and started demanding more from yourself than the average person is willing to demand. And this is the moment where the entire game begins to change. Because once you truly understand that failure usually happens before action. You begin to see the hidden patterns that control the lives of most people around you. You start noticing how often individuals destroy their own momentum before momentum even has the chance to exist. Watch closely and you'll see it everywhere. A person gets an idea, something that could genuinely improve their life, and instead of moving immediately, they begin searching for permission. Permission from friends, permission from family, permission from society. But the brutal reality is that permission is rarely granted to those who ask for it. Permission is taken by those who move first and prove themselves later. The world respects results, not hesitation. Most people have been conditioned since childhood to believe that safety is the highest priority. Stay comfortable, stay predictable, stay within the lines. And while those instructions may create stability, they also quietly erase ambition, because ambition, by its very nature, requires stepping outside the boundaries of what feels secure. Every meaningful pursuit begins with uncertainty. Every meaningful pursuit carries the possibility of failure. And the average person has been trained to avoid that feeling at all costs. But avoiding uncertainty also means avoiding growth. Think about physical training for a moment. If someone enters a gym and only lifts weights that feel comfortable, their body never changes. Muscles grow only when resistance challenges the existing structure. The same principle applies to the human mind. Your mental strength expands only when you place yourself in situations that require courage, focus, and discipline. Without that pressure, the mind remains soft, comfortable, unprepared for the real demands of life. And this is exactly why so many people reach their 30s, their 40s, sometimes even their 50s, carrying the quiet frustration of unrealized potential. Deep down, they know they were capable of more. They know there were opportunities they could have taken, risks they could have attempted, paths they could have explored. But every time the starting line appeared, the same internal dialogue repeated itself. Maybe later. I'll start when things are more stable. I need more time to prepare. And that phrase later has destroyed more ambition than any external obstacle ever could. Later becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. And eventually the opportunity that once existed disappears completely. Meanwhile, the disciplined minority operates under a completely different philosophy. They understand that time is the most valuable currency in existence. You can lose money and recover it. You can lose opportunities and create new ones. But time, once spent, is permanently gone. And because they understand this principle deeply, they refuse to delay action when progress is possible. They move quickly. They move decisively. They move imperfectly. And that last point is crucial, because perfection is another illusion that keeps people frozen at the starting line. Many individuals believe they must have the perfect plan, the perfect knowledge, and the perfect conditions before they begin. But perfection is not the starting point of success. Perfection is the byproduct of repetition. A chess master does not become elite by studying theory forever. Eventually, he must sit down at the board and play thousands of games. Some of those games will be mistakes. Some of those games will be mistakes. Some will be losses. But every match sharpens his awareness. Every challenge strengthens his strategic thinking. And over time, what once felt complicated becomes instinctive. Life operates the same way. Skill grows through action. Confidence grows through repetition. Mastery grows through pressure. But none of these elements can exist for someone who refuses to step onto the board. Now imagine the psychological advantage of a person who understands this early in life. While others are debating, overthinking, and delaying, this individual is accumulating experience. Every project teaches them something. Every risk expands their perspective. Every obstacle becomes a training ground for resilience. By the time others finally gather the courage to begin, the disciplined individual is already several stages ahead. This is why the gap between successful individuals and average individuals often appears mysterious from the outside. People look at the final results and assume there must have been special advantages, rare luck, or hidden opportunities. But the truth is usually much simpler. One person started earlier, one person moved faster, one person refused to wait for certainty. And over the course of years, those small differences compound into massive separation. But here's something even more important to understand. Starting early is not only about external success, it is also about internal transformation. Because the moment you begin confronting difficult challenges voluntarily, your identity begins evolving. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids pressure. You start seeing yourself as someone who handles pressure. That shift alone changes everything. The human brain constantly builds narratives about who we are. If your daily behavior shows hesitation, your brain labels you as hesitant. If your behavior demonstrates discipline, your brain labels you as disciplined. And once that identity forms, your actions begin aligning with it automatically. This is why the first step is so powerful. The first step is not about immediate victory. The first step is about redefining who you are. And once your identity begins shifting toward discipline, action becomes easier. Not effortless, but easier. The internal resistance that once felt overwhelming slowly weakens. You wake up with more clarity. You think with more direction. You make decisions faster. Not because life suddenly became simpler, but because your mind has adapted to movement instead of stagnation. Consider how elite competitors approach their craft. Whether in athletics, business, or any demanding field, the most successful individuals share one psychological trait. They expect difficulty. They do not view challenges as signs that something is wrong. They view challenges as confirmation that they are operating at the correct level. Pressure becomes normal. Responsibility becomes normal. High standards become normal. And when something becomes normal, the mind stops resisting it. Average individuals interpret obstacles as warnings to retreat. Elite individuals interpret obstacles as indicators of progress. The same situation produces two completely different reactions based on mindset alone. This is why mental conditioning matters more than talent in the long run. Talent may create early advantages, but discipline sustains progress over decades. And the world ultimately rewards the individuals who remain consistent the longest. But consistency cannot exist in a mind that constantly negotiates with comfort. Consistency requires commitment to standards that remain firm, even when motivation disappears. It requires waking up on difficult mornings and still executing the plan. It requires continuing the process even when results are temporarily invisible. Because invisible progress is still progress. Roots grow underground, long before the tree becomes visible above the soil. Strength develops internally long before the world recognizes it externally, and the individuals who understand this principle are able to endure the early phases of growth without losing direction. They know something the average person does not. They know that success is rarely a dramatic explosion of results. More often, it is the quiet accumulation of disciplined decisions repeated thousands of times until the outcome becomes unavoidable. Which means the real question is not whether you are capable of success. The real question is whether you are capable of starting before you feel completely ready, and then continuing long enough for your discipline to compound into something undeniable. If this message challenged the way you think and pushed you to see discipline, action, and ambition differently, then don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel right now, because this community is built for people who want to sharpen their mindset and build real strength. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below telling me the one action you're going to start today, because your voice matters here and your commitment makes this community stronger. And one more thing, let's move fast and build momentum together. Our goal right now is to reach 1,000 subscribers as quickly as possible. So if you believe in this mission of powerful mindset and disciplined growth, hit subscribe, support the channel, and be part of the people who decided not to stay average, but to start moving forward with purpose.